I don't think they're coming back. Where's the beef? Where's the beef? Hey, where's the beef? Where's the beef?
That's right. Where's the beef? Where's the beef indeed? Because JBS, world's largest meat supplier, meat packer, processor, something like that, got hacked. Who did it? I personally think it was the Chick-fil-A cows because they have a stake in that game. Get it? Stake in the game. Literally just popped off the top of my head. Don't worry, I know where that came from. But between our beer getting hacked and our water supply getting hacked and our fuel supply getting hacked and now our meat getting hacked. Well, yeah, that sounded wrong. Anyway, our meat getting hacked. There's a Bobbitt story there somewhere. But anyway, who's the culprit? Who's behind it? Who could it be? We'll talk about that and more coming up on OT Exposed. Raw, as in raw meat. Yep, that's right. I'm still here. Didn't go anywhere. And yes, that is a Burger Time retro arcade game in the background because, ladies and gentlemen, that's where the beef is. That's the only place the beef is. But before we get to talking about this, let's welcome our co-host. He's got half the hair of Hacker Man and 42 times the intelligence. Let's welcome Pascal Ackerman.
Yo.
What's up, man?
Good to be back from this undisclosed location in Mississippi. I'm on site live, doing the good deed where I can, trying to prevent these kind of hacks for our customers.
He's hacking the meat. He's hacking the meat, man. He really is. And oh, by the way, I just got to mention, everybody's asking me, hey, are you like doing plugs? I got this coffee mug here, and it's GPA, our friends over at Global Process Automation, and they're like, are you plugging companies? Are they sponsoring? No. Although Scott McNeil probably does have a man crush on me, this is not sponsorship. This is just my favorite coffee mug. However, if you would like to have your coffee mug featured on the show, send me coffee mugs and I'll drink out of those too. But anyway, Pascal, so before we get our guest on here, you got any opening monologues? We got a special guest and I like this fact that we're getting guests on the show now as opposed to just you and me because you are boring. So
I've heard that before, but you're not that interesting yourself either. So
no, I'm not. So that's what
a guest on the show.
Yeah, that's why we have to have guests. So, so let's welcome our guests. So this guy is such a Chick-fil-A advocate that I think he probably had a hand in some of this beef hacking. So anyway, let's all welcome Mr. Ken Underhill.
Woo. Thanks, Clint. Thanks, Pascal. I expected fireworks. It didn't happen.
I gotta say,
from your location in Alaska, Pascal, it's
actually it was Kentucky, borderline Georgia, but I'm still in Kentucky.
Yeah, so I think Ken's coming to us live from the space station or something on the way to Mars.
Well, Clint, once I realized people thought it was me and the cows from Chick-fil-A doing this hack, I figured it was time to go to Mars and make my escape. So,
well. I wish you well. And
it's a long journey. It's a long journey.
Yeah. When do you go into stasis there? Anyway, all right. We're just wasting time here. Let's get to the real beef of the show. So let's talk about JBS a little bit, man. So JBS, and you know, this kind of show is, or today's show is, we had so much going on this week, and Pascal's out on site and out on location that I really rely on him to prepare most of the show notes. So we're light on content. I'm just kidding. So JBS, world's largest meat supplier, they did report that it was ransomware. And I guess we have to acknowledge the fact that 2 days ago, they did report that their systems are back up and running now. So looks like we're not going to have a meat shortage. I mean, Pascal still does, but we're going to have no major meat shortage. I mean, God forbid, again, God forbid this is toilet paper, right? I mean, I think that's next. I think toilet paper hacking is next.
We're already short on meat and toilet paper here in Hawaii, so it's gonna be tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think we're going to have a shortage of short meat jokes today. Meat shortages and meat packing. This is real. I mean, in fact, I think somebody's going to end up bringing up a beef injection attack joke. So, but
you just did.
Yeah, I just did, didn't I? I did. So let's talk about it. So again, this was not Dark Side. This was another hacking group called Revel, and they're a Russian-speaking group, apparently. And so, and by the way, according to our sources where we're getting this information, so JBS apparently supplies 1/5 of the world's meat supply. So, correction, I misread that. 1/5 of the world's meat supply was apparently offline. So when this attack happened, 1/5 of the world's meat supply apparently went offline. I've never even heard of JBS before. Apparently they're headquartered in Brazil, I guess, and then it was their American based companies that got hit. And that's kind of one of the things that has me concerned, right? Because it wasn't like the Brazilian headquarters, it wasn't anywhere else, it was in America. And then we'll talk about that a little later on what I think the implications of this might be. But I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on this? This whole specifically, and yeah, Pascal. I guess Pascal, you come from a food and beverage manufacturing kind of background, so definitely interested to hear your perspective from that end. And then Ken, I mean, you're a cybersecurity expert, so I'm going to shut up now for once and let y'all talk.
That would be nice for once. Maybe we should just take a minute of silence and enjoy that. But
yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
But I don't know the complete details behind it, but I was aware, or I read somewhere that, again, just like in Colonial pipeline attack, they didn't actually make it all the way to the OT site. So it was more of a cautious shut down your systems before things really happened. You said the C word,
didn't you?
I did. So drink. I was waiting for that. You were a little slow, but you're catching up.
I was ignoring you. I was checking in with our viewers.
I thought it was the lag for me being here in New Mexico. But anyway, so the OT equipment didn't directly get targeted or didn't directly get affected by this attack. Yet the decision to shut down their production had still the same impact as if the OT would have been attacked. So I think that this, in the long run, this might have some consequences on how we look at the attack chain or the cyber attack chain for the OT space. Right? We don't have to make it all the way to the OT anymore, because a lot of companies will just decide to pull the plug to be preventative and not to see the attack have any more damage.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most important part, is that you don't have to have OT targeted attacks anymore. You don't have to have attacks on the OT network. They can start in the adjacent networks like the enterprise IT, but still impact the OT. You have any thoughts there, Ken?
Yeah, a few thoughts. Number one, it's a great time to be either a vegetarian or vegan, because then this doesn't even impact you. I think we have a joke sound. But anyways, the main thing here, and you guys obviously are the OT experts, in my opinion.
Obviously.
Well, except for Clint. But Pascal, you are at your location in Florida. But the thing to remember here, a lot of times, is it all is usually attacking the IT networks. So when we see these things in the news as the general public, or even as professionals not in the critical infrastructure space, a lot of times people get all excited and stuff like that. And a lot of these are just attacks on the IT networks. And a lot of them aren't, as you mentioned, Pascal, aren't directly coming over to the OT systems. So I think, another thought I have here is that since there's limited data that we have, because I've probably read the same things you guys have, do we know for sure? Do we know for sure that nothing's crossed over, that this was just a precautionary thing? Do we think that the C word place will tell us about
Drink.
What happened there? Do we think that the meat place will tell us what happened there? So, will we ever really understand the truth?
The truth is out there. I will tell you that the truth is out there.
I think it went better. Do we even know if it had to cross the boundaries, right? Because a lot of these companies still have one big giant flat network, and that means an attack on IT is directly an attack on OT, and it's all actually IT because it's one flat network. But still, yeah, there's a lot of companies doing that. On the other hand, I'd love to see us get to a point where we can say, hey, IT is being attacked, but we're still running, right? That brings in confidence. But until then, I think attacks on your IT environment, on your enterprise environment, are going to directly affect your operations.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have those different types of scenarios, right? You have number one where there is proper segmentation, pretty rare still in this industry, but where you have an improper segmentation, like you said. I mean, so you have proper segmentation, but these attacks can still cause. And by the way, I forgot to put in my earpiece this week, and so there's always something. I forgot to put in my earpiece, so probably going to hear some echo. I'll see if I can actually get that going here in a minute again, so I can eliminate the echo. But anyway, so you have a proper segmented network, but the OT non-targeted OT attack, but attack on enterprise IT can logistically affect it. Then you have a situation to where you have flat networks to where maybe it does affect the operations environment of the process. And in this case, I still don't know. I haven't read up in the last couple of days because things have been busy and Pascal's been on site, like I said. Ken, if you don't know, you dropped the ball. But I don't know if it actually did affect OT. We just know there was a ransomware, supposedly a ransomware, and that the meat supply production, the process and the production has stopped. We don't know why. At least I don't anyway. And so maybe, I don't know if any of our audience know why, but either way, I think it's important though, is that it does not have to be a direct attack on OT for situations up, just like we saw with, Colonial. And so I preemptively did that drink right there. But, and so anyway, and I don't think at this point right now, because we're talking about stopping production, and these are ransomware attacks, it honestly doesn't matter whether it was a direct attack stopping the OT network or if it was indirectly affecting it because of safety precautions or billing or whatever it was. I don't think it matters. The result is the same.
I think it was probably an opportunistic attack. If it was an attack at all, it was just an accident of somebody opening the wrong email or going to the wrong website. Their IT got infected, their enterprise got infected, and as a precaution, they shut the whole thing down, which has the same effect as being a targeted attack.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit. Like, so we've had the beer, right? I think it was it Coors Molson? What is
Molson, Coors Molson, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, you're barely old enough to drink, and so
I'm 16. I'm 16 for the audience. I'm only 16.
But so we had that production stopped, right? And then we had the attack. A little bit different. It wasn't ransomware in the water, right? So we had the water plant attack in Florida, where you're at right now, Pascal. And
Yep.
And so we not at the plant. I better clarify that. Yeah. So
I'm in the next state over. I'm in Alaska.
Yeah, he has firsthand knowledge. But anyway, so you had the water plant attack was not ransomware, and then of course you did have Colonial, and so once you had that, now we're looking at another processing plant. It to me, and this is all speculation, but there's been some reports on this, and I think it was just like FUD, and I'm not trying to spread FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but here on this show we like to talk about FUD, and I'm not talking about just Elmer. But I think it's fun to talk about the speculation of shit blowing up. So, so ultimately, what What do you think this means? Just literally in the last few months, we've had industrial process from manufacturing to water plant to fuel supply to now meat, food and beverage. Is this a dry run? Is it? It looks like separate groups, but could this be a dry run? Could it be nation state sponsored? Are they trying to disrupt social and economical stability in the United States? What do you guys think?
I'll do really quick because I'm curious to hear Ken on this. But in my opinion, it's just the bad guys catching on to how easy these things are, right? I think that's more than anything else. Right? Anything else being reported in the news, I think it's like you said, it's FUD at the moment. What's your opinion, Ken?
I would agree with that, and I would just also add in that a lot of times the media doesn't even cover these things. So just because it's a popular thing where there's a bigger impact, like the Colonial pipeline getting shut down, because it's a big impact like that, it's newsworthy now. Everyone's, oh my goodness, all these evil hackers. But this type of stuff is, you guys are in the game. Pascal's over in Russia right now, so you guys are in the game. This stuff happens. It just doesn't normally make the news.
Yep, it's very true.
Yeah, and I can go either way on that. I think for the most part, I think it is just opportunistic, and I think that the bad guys are starting to realize that there is big game hunting, what they call it, right? There's big game hunting in industry, right? But I think, if you look at this, let's see if I can find my notes here. There was somewhere in here. I can't find it right now. God, Ken's notes are terrible.
Well, they're written with bacon.
His notes on it. That's it.
Yeah. So there was supposedly a representative from the Revel. So again, like we said, it was supposedly a representative from the Revel organization, the one that the guys that did this last attack, and he did say, and like I said, I've got my notes here. I got Ken's notes here somewhere. He did say that it was that they were going to start targeting. Apparently, I think it was food and beverage, not just not all process, but food and beverage. And so there is some evidence based on reporting and however much you can believe reports. There's some evidence that they do plan on targeting. Now, they didn't say in the report, they didn't say if they're targeting it because of any social economical impacts or because I just think that's where the impact is. Now, this is in stark contrast, though, to what DarkSide did, right? DarkSide performed the ransomware attack on Colonial, but then they retracted it and they said, "Oh, we're sorry, we didn't actually mean to do that. We didn't mean to disrupt things." Whereas apparently Revel is coming out saying the exact opposite. They're saying that they do want to target, they do want to cause this. Now, again, I don't know their motive. So any thoughts on that?
Like I said, this is a lot of speculation. I think in general, ransomware is up. The use of ransomware is up because it's lucrative, right? It's got a high success rate and it's got a good payout. I think it's up, and we're seeing that across the board. But the ones that are really interesting, like Ken said, the ones that are really interesting, those are the ones that make the news. And you know what? Industrial is a good headline at the moment. So the news outlets will jump on that. In the meantime, while we're talking, probably 6, 7, 8, 10, 20, 500 people all over the world are getting a ransomware infection right now.
And that's probably true.
Yeah, and we're probably getting that too, Pascal, from Clint. He's probably hitting us right now with it. We just don't know until after this call.
I keep pushing until next reboot, so it's not installed during the show. It's
perfect.
Reboot, yeah.
So that there's a plan for everyone out there. That's how you get past ransomware.
Well, I'm sure that this being your first meeting and all, I'm sure Pascal is really happy to meet you. So
yeah,
I just looked it up. So the Revel, the representative, goes by the handle UNKN. I guess it's short for unknown, I'm assuming. And they stated that that their main target is going to be agriculture. So my first thought is, one, vegans.
Yep.
Two, vegetarians as a subset of that. And
don't forget Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. I think Chick-fil-A is probably going to be the main culprit of that. And we're going to get sued by Chick-fil-A, but not on Sunday. All right. So let's, I think that we've probably beat that, horse. I know it's not beef, but at McDonald's is, horse. We beat that horse to death. And, it's not really a beef joke, but it is if you're maybe at like McDonald's or some other nice.
Well, yeah, didn't Taco Bell have horse meat a few years back?
Oh man, I think allegedly. Yeah, and I think IKEA did too. I think IKEA got in trouble allegedly for having horse meat in their meat.
I think you guys should continue because at some point we will get sued by one of those companies you're mentioning now. So just keep going.
Yeah, probably. So I'm pretty sure Robert is probably online watching, freaking out, having a heart attack right now. And our legal counsel is too. But so let's. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is not just like, we can speculate all we want. We can talk around all this all we want. But I think there's two main issues when it comes to all these attacks. When you look at the Coors attack or Molson or whatever it was, you look at that manufacturing attack, you look at the water plant in Florida attack, you look at Colonial, you look at what happened here with JBS, and it really, when it comes down to it with ransomware and how they enter, I mean, I've got more notes and more details here on some of the, how they got in with using basic techniques and everything. And I'm not even going to get into the details. We're not even trying to cover details on this show, but I think the important thing is it's all low hanging fruit, all of it. And so there's two main ways to stop, and there's two main ways to stop attacks that get in with low-hanging fruit. Number one is segment your damn network, basic blocking and tackling. The other one is training. I mean, you're only as smart as your stupidest user, and that's a lot of people. And so I think, Ken, let's talk about training a little bit, because you are a cybersecurity training expert. I mean, that's your forte. That's what you do. And so let's talk about why training is not effective. Why are people still so stupid when it comes to, basic social engineering, which is how most of your ransomware attacks come in? So, what's going on there with training?
Yeah, so part of it is what I call giving up. So, as an example, I've met with different small business owners and just regular people, and they're using all these different apps on their phone, as an example, and these social media apps. And I say, well, what about this? What about that? And they're like, whatever, they're going to get in if they want to get in. No big deal. And so that mindset is something that even a security practitioner in an organization may have. Like, well, whatever. I mean, they'll get in, or, well, this email looks good enough. No big deal. So I think a challenge we have is we do security awareness training, but I've been through a lot of different training from different people, and it's very few people have related it to what I cared about at that time, long before I ever got into cyber. So as an example, when I worked in healthcare in cybersecurity and had to do security awareness training, I'm a former medic, former nurse. So I can relate to a nurse and say, hey, look, you won't be able to do this, you're charting, or you won't be able to use a bathroom or take a break or whatever. If this thing happens, that's why you shouldn't do this thing. And when you do it like that, when you relate it to something they actually care about, they remember that. I think that's where a lot of training out there lacks, as far as we're just talking about security awareness training. That's where a lot of it lacks. You see a video, they maybe have you, play around with some phishing emails and, oh, you clicked it, you didn't, blah, blah, blah. But where we lack everything is relating it for people. Because if it's important to me, if I think of it important, like, oh, well, gosh, man, I can't take a lunch break. If this happens as a nurse and I click on this thing, I'm going to remember that. So I'm going to make sure I take a second, pause, and say, well, is this really an email from HR? Would HR really email me this document right now? So that's my perspective on it. I think that we're not connecting the dots, right? We're not saying this is why it's important. And I'm sure you guys are seeing that in the OT space as well.
You know, here's interesting. We just had a comment from our audience, and hi, Jim. Good to see you. Glad to see you made it. Good to see you again. Long time no talk. So he's not going to admit that we met. But anyway, so this is a good comment. He said years ago, you know, at INL, they specifically had in ICS related areas, they had phishing training, and then 2 weeks later, some people were tested by the security firm to see how effective training was, and they had 80% failure. And I think that literally just plays into, you know, what you just said. For whatever reason, it's either not relating to them. And here's my thoughts, right? I think CBTs are boring, and I think we just run through the CBTs to just to get through them as fast as possible and don't really care. I think that 5-day classes at certain institutes or educational places, number one, you pay a lot of money to go sit into a lecture, and lectures are boring. And the hands-on is great, but a lot of places, you know, what can you really learn in 5 days, right? And then so when you try to pack too much into 5 days, you're not really going to hold on to that, or you're going to learn what I call parlor tricks in a lot of cases. You're not going to learn the real valuable stuff you're looking for. And you just end up collecting certifications, but not getting that hands-on experience. Now, like I said, some of the hands-on stuff is great, and the certifications are great, and the education is great, but it's too little for too much money. And I think a lot of people can't afford that, you know? And so I think, when it comes down to skills training, there's that issue. When it comes down to awareness training, that's the issue. For awareness training, you have a combination of, you have phishing training, but that people have, a phishing exercise, but it's not really training, it's exercise, which people fail, as we just saw in the previous comment. I think ultimately, when you come down to what's going wrong with training, I think you hit the nail on the head, Ken. Is that it doesn't relate to people. People don't. It doesn't touch. It doesn't hit home with them. And also, I think that they're not in the scenario, right? They're not being held accountable for for the training that they're doing. They're just going through the exercise instead of being placed in the action, and to make it, because you can make it hit home with people, not just by saying, hey, you're not going to go be able to use the toilet later. You're not going to get toilet paper. You're not going to get your beef, whatever. But instead, put them in an exercise to where they like role play, almost like where they are responsible for the cybersecurity. And then all of a sudden, it's an emotional attachment to the exercise, and then they get it. It means something to them at that moment. So anyway, any further thoughts on that?
I'm a firm believer that this kind of stuff needs to be solved with technical measures, because you always have one of those assholes out there that doesn't give a rat's ass, and he's going to click on it, either because he doesn't care or because he's got a bad feeling for the company. So I say, if you can do a technical solution, go for it. Yep.
I mean, and I think for the most part is people forget and people don't care. And I don't think that, I think that for those type of people, there's going to be very little training that you can do to help the people that just don't care.
Here's a thought though, with everybody working from home, if you are using your home laptop, your home network to connect to your business network, I wonder how that will reflect in people wanting to click on every link, right? Because now you're in your own home. If you click it, not only does your VPN connected network go down, but your own network and your own pictures and your own backups are going to go to hell as well. So maybe that's the solution. Everybody just work from home.
Well, what about this? So like, Ken, what have you seen better numbers? Have you seen more effectiveness from different types of e-learning courses versus live classroom lectures, or different styles of learning?
Yeah. So the best way to do it, and let's just pull out of cyber for a minute and just talk at a broader sense. The best way to do it, Clint, you're former military, so am I. The best way to do it is immersion, right? The hands-on, real like scenarios. So think of it like we're flying a plane. You're not going to put Ken in the cockpit.
A spaceship, though.
Well, I am flying a spaceship, yeah. And so before I flew my spaceship on my way to Mars, and I'll go in my little container in a minute to hibernate. But before I did that, right, I used a flight simulator. So that way I didn't have to launch rockets and go in space and mess it up and die and all that stuff. So we really need to get that simulation of real scenarios, and that builds up muscle memory. So if we go back to like my medic training in the military, we use the SimMan tools. And so, hey, the airway's gone. Oh, he's bleeding out. You know, you've got to fix this and that. And so that way, when you're out there in the real world and someone's bleeding, you've built that muscle memory. So you just go do it. Hopefully you're not squeamish if you're a medic and, you know, oh my gosh, blood. But you build that muscle memory. And that's where choice. Yeah. And the thing is, the vast majority of training out there misses that, right? Let's teach you how to do a cert, like you mentioned earlier. Let's get you a certification, or let's give you a little hands-on in a million different areas and not really train you in skills that you would use on the job. Let's, use stuff from 1990s of scenarios and not real scenarios that are happening now. So I think we're missing the boat on multiple angles in the training out there. And that's what's really wrong is we're not making it where someone can go from your training, whoever you are out there with the training, and go on the job and actually do stuff. So,
you brought up an interesting thought. What if we make this more realistic, right? Right now, if you click on an email, on a phishing email, you probably get a pop-up, or maybe not even a pop-up, but you get an email back from HR saying, hey, you clicked on it, it was bad. But if we take it a little step further, you click on that, we're installing some sort of a simulated attack on your machine. It goes down, you get ransomware there, you got to go to all of the hoops, and you got to go to HR, you go to your boss, and you have to go to all of that to get recovered from it. Being like a controlled environment. What do you think of that?
Well, how much can you control that if I was on your network, I couldn't weaponize that to use against your staff?
Well, so there's a technology behind it again, but I think we can make it so that it's contained, right? You could just say, okay, you click on that link, we're going to shut down your computer, and you're going to have to go through the HR department or to your IT department or to your boss or whatever that looks like to get like a key or to get it reinstalled on the network, something like that.
I think it can work. I guess the question is what happens when the executive clicks that and comes and complains, and now the cyber team's getting yelled at by the CISO.
I think if the executive clicks on that link, the IT department is going to have a nice day. So you clicked on that link, huh? Oh, you come here between Monday 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. and I'll fix it for you.
How does it feel now? Stick it to the man.
So I think it could work, right? I think there'll be some issues with it, and I think there'll be some challenges maybe at scale. So like, let's say you got 10,000 employees and 9,000 and are coming to IT and hey, there's issues with anything, right? There's issues with any idea, but I think it can work. It's just
I think that would be a fantastic way to get more funding. It'll be like, hey, why did we have a big outage across the board? It's because we did this test and everybody clicked on it. If this was for real, the outage would have been 6 weeks, but we caught it. We still had some downtime, but if we had XYZ implemented, I think it's a good case of getting some extra funding with that.
I think we should move to mice, whatever you want to call them. Your mouse, click mice. I think we should move into mouse with electric shocks and do like electric shock therapy. So mix your phishing exercises with every time you click on something, it's like, and this big thing pops up on your screen, dumbass. I think that's kind of the Pavlov thing, right? Electric shock therapy.
Well, what about if it malfunctions, right? Like that one car company with a T that starts with a T that had the cyber car. Like, what if it doesn't work right and it just shocks somebody automatically? So I don't want to say the name because Robert might be watching and worried about.
What if your bus mouse gets hacked?
And then exactly. I was going to say, people like Pascal and your company is going to hack your mouse. So you're sitting there working in the middle of a meeting. It's going to be. So and here's the thing, and I'm just going to say, I'm not a big proponent for plugging my own creations in a show, but I do have to say that I think gamification is up and coming. But it's that's why I got into gamifications, because I think that look, when I was a kid, I was a game rager. In fact, I kind of still am. My kids take after me. They're game ragers. And, whenever games are so realistic nowadays that you could put people and immerse people into that environment. And I think it creates the necessary emotional context to make it memorable. So anyway, that's the only thing I'm going to say. That's all. I think Forrest Gump says that's all I'm going to say about that. But let's move on a little bit. I know that we've only got about 11 minutes left in the show. We try to end at 45 minutes with the guests. But there's one thing I did want to mention. So let's get beyond the low-hanging fruit. And let's talk about something that could be impactful. It was reported just, was it this week, earlier this week or late last week, that so Clarity did a really good job in discovering and finding a way to get a remote code execution exploit working on a Siemens PLC. And so I'll let you, if you want to, I've got some notes here and everything like that, but I'll let you talk about that first, Pascal. This was you're the one that kind of brought this to my attention. So what do you want to, anything you want to say before I kind of get into the notes?
Yeah, so I got mixed feelings about it. On one side, I'm very, very excited to see that we're finally getting our foot in the door. We're getting native code execution vulnerabilities on these PLCs, right? That's the holy grail, to get in there and maybe get some malware, get a rootkit, or maybe even ransomware to run on a PLC. But thinking about that, that's also very scary. Being able to have something on your network that can take down a PLC to the point that it's maybe even unrecoverable. So that's the split personality that I have behind this, and I know it's evil and it's good and all of that. But I think this is going to take a lot of awareness on a long ignored aspect of the industrial industry, and that's just it. Most of these things are not designed by security by default with the security in mind. And we've talked about that so many times, but it's going to show up once and again. Having said that, though, having a remote code execution or a memory corruption vulnerability in a PLC that gives you that allows you to bypass security controls like authentication, then I would say, so what? You can already connect to that PLC and change every value you want in there, right? So from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, when so specifically, this was the vulnerability is in somatic S7 1200s and S7 1500s, and this is what researchers, when it comes to ICS researchers, this is what would be considered kind of the holy grail of vulnerabilities, getting remote code execution, and this is something that if you get code execution on a PLC, this allows you to change the logic of the PLC. And for our viewers that may not be that understand, so a PLC is a programmable logic controller, and it controls it controls the automation of an industrial process, whatever that may be. Refinement or water plant or meat packing or whatever. And so
let me correct you just a little bit. So the remote code execution doesn't allow, while it allows you to change the code running it, but more importantly, it allows you to manipulate the interpreter of that code. So right now with ladder logic, you turn on lights, you look at motor status and stuff like that, and you can control that. That's your ladder logic in it. But having a remote code execution gives you the chance to sit above that and interpret it. If the light comes on in the background, I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have safety coded into the logic and stuff like that, you could bypass that. You can override that. Remote code execution remote code execution actually lets you do a lot more than control logic, let's say. And so having and this is not the first time that we've seen this vulnerability, right? We've seen something similar to this in Stuxnet, right? And so we've seen something similar to that there, but that was more in the engineering software. Then we're not going to get into that, but we've started to see the beginnings of this quite a while ago, and having a vulnerability and a working exploit of this nature into the actual PLCs of the process starts to get the possibility going. Again, I'm not trying to perpetrate FUD here, but if this is getting us beyond just ransomware, and this is getting us into somebody actually being able to get onto the process. Now, that said, you still have to have network access to the PLC, which means proper network segmentation and basic blocking and tackling and other controls there are going to be paramount. But should you get access to it, it's no longer just a matter of let's see if we can hack into the engineering workstation and get access to the PLC and then manipulate just the logic. We can get direct access to the PLC and then do whatever we want with it for the most part with remote code execution.
Yep, it's important to point out though that even with the remote code execution that they found on the Siemens PLCs, there's still a whole bunch of memory protections there that would have to be bypassed to get anything decent out of it. But again, that's probably just a question of time, right? And enough research behind it.
Yeah, and so what are kind of your final thoughts on that? I mean, do you think we're running out on? We got about 5 minutes left, and I've got some few things that I want, some house cleaning items I want to take care of before we go. So, and I'm hearing the echo, so I really apologize if our viewers are hearing the echo. I really wanted to.
I'll back up a little bit. Every time I get closer, you get the echo.
Yeah, I apologize for that. It's just today was a busy day, and I just forgot to put my monitor earpiece in like a professional newscaster or something.
Well, I do just want to say, Pascal, we do call you Superman, so you're the Man of Steel, which makes sense. You get closer, we get the echo.
Hey.
I call him the Man of Steel because he sits there and doesn't do anything. But so
and you pay me for it, so thank you.
That's right. So what are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to see more of these remote code execution vulnerabilities now that the cat's out of the bag? Kind of, this is the proverbial stone in the pond, right? Once it's out there and it causes the ripples, it's going to create more ripples. And so, do you think we're going to see more of these? Or do you think we're going to see this evolve from just ransomware attacks to these being utilized? Again, my thought is you still have to have access to the network, so I don't know. What do you think?
With servers, if you do a simple search on Shodan or Census, the amount of devices that are sitting on there that are wide open, that are ready for attack on this, I think, it's a good opportunity to have network access through those means. And I think we're going to see more of these kind of attacks and see them evolve. So on the other hand, if you have your basic segmentation, if you have your basic patch management in place, these attacks shouldn't worry you too much, right? Because first of all, if you're segmented, you give yourself the time to uncover vulnerabilities like this and to schedule downtime around patching them.
Ken, any thoughts?
I agree with Pascal. I think, and kind of, exactly. Easy answer. But going back to what you said earlier, Clint, a lot of this is blocking and tackling. If we do the fundamentals, a lot of this stuff out there, whether it's on OT or healthcare systems or your average IT network, a lot of it can be mitigated in advance, or at least make it a little more challenging for these attackers.
Right. No, and I agree. And I think we're going to see what happens over the coming weeks, coming months. I think we will. We'll see, and we'll talk about it here on the show and see what happens. And so,
as a final note that I want to say on that, doing your due diligence and the standard stuff to prevent these things, we give the vendors the chance to catch up as well, because I know firsthand that some of the big companies, the big names out there, are already working on the next type of controllers and the next implementation, right? They're not sitting on their hands doing nothing, but they're also struggling to catch up and to come up with a solution that will work on all fronts, that protects us and it still gives us the flexibility and the openness of the industrial environment.
Well, and I think also that's a good point that vendors are working on it, but it takes it's a huge effort to just uproot 30,000 devices in an infrastructure deployed across the globe to redeploy brand new hardware and the whole entire network. So, that anyway, that's something we can talk about in the future. Definitely good conversation to end on and good conversation to move on. A couple house cleaning items I do want to say. So if any beef providers or any fast food restaurants that were offended during the course of this broadcast, we were only kidding about you using horse meat. We know you use only quality beef. So anybody that any fast food providers, we were kidding. So Also want to point out, I am wearing my Beer ISAC shirt. Not a sponsorship, but I want to shout out to all the Beer ISAC members out there. Just had to wear the shirt today. And also want to point out that I had a great time last weekend on the Haunted Hacker podcast. And so we have formed a loose partnership with those guys. And they're great guys and gals out there, a whole group of people. It's amazing. It was a great podcast. Had a few beers, had some whiskey, had a great conversation. And if you can't see the link there, put it right there. And may want to take a screenshot because you're not going to remember that one. But anyway, just want to put a shout out to those guys. Again, kind of our podcast broadcast partners there, unofficial affiliates, but maybe we'll make an official one day. But just had to put a shout out because those guys and gals are awesome. So that being said, we are at the end of our time, and look at me, I'm looking selfish, taking up all of the time there. So thank you to our guest, Ken Underhill, and as always, Pascal Ackerman for being on the show. It was nice to meet you, Ken. Anyway, actually, I met Ken a long time ago at a Houston security conference, but anyway, look forward to the next broadcast. Look forward to seeing you and talking to you again, Ken, soon. Pascal, don't really look forward to too much, but I know I have to. So on that note, everybody, we will catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.